everybody. Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. As you know, this is a platform where people share their stories of resilience. And today, do I have a story for you? I have my friend Mark Brodinsky. Did I say that correct? Brodinsky.
Close enough.
Brodinsky. Mark Brodinsky. And Mark and I met. We did an 8-week course, Mastering Your Mind Power. And that's where we met and we connected and we found out we're both podcaster. And our friendship went from there. So I'm so happy to have you on the Sally Allen podcast. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Sally. I'm thrilled to be here. It's really an honor to be joining you, and I appreciate you being on my podcast as well, the You Matter Show podcast. I think we're developing a great rapport here, and so I am thrilled to be here. Like I said, honored and willing to share and talk about whatever it is that you want to ask me.
All right. Well, you have an interesting background, so before we get into that, let me properly introduce you. So Mark was a former Emmy winner, producer, and reporter at WJZ-TV CBS in Baltimore. He's now a health insurance division leader. He's an author, he's a podcaster, he's a blogger, he's a storyteller. But his main goal, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is he wants to impact 1 billion people with his You Matter movement. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. My mission is to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. And that came to me about 7-8 years ago. And about 4 years ago, I found this You Matter movement from just a story I heard on a Darren Daly. Darren Hardy does a Darren Daly mentoring session every day. And he told a story about these You Matter cards. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I do that for people? So that started out with handing out the card. Now it's becoming even more. And we're building a global community on Instagram. And I want to develop a course as well. So related to the whole You Matter movement, because I believe that if you get 1 billion people to believe in themselves, believe that they matter and can reach their potential, then that ripple effect would touch all 8 billion lives on the planet.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So when we were talking the last time, you mentioned that you were going to Europe and you were going to bring some of these cards and they're in different language. Tell me what your intentions are.
Yeah, so that's part of the global movement here. And a friend of mine, I have to give him credit, Rob Commodore, who's in my mastermind group. I've been talking about the trip for quite some time. And he said, you do these You Matter cards everywhere. Why don't you have the cards made? For people that are actually watching this, I actually have the French and Italian cards right there. So I'll be handing those out when I go to Paris and Florence and Rome next week. So we're going to take pictures, make them Instagram stars and tell their stories and get them up on Instagram, really make this a global You Matter movement. So I'm excited about that. I'm thrilled, actually. I always wanted to take this thing overseas, so it's the perfect time. Use my vacation time to actually do a little work on working on other people.
I like it. So tell me about some impact this You Matter cards have been having on people.
So it is amazing, Sally, when I hand them to people. It's lots of times it's people who provide service, or I just meet on the street sometimes. But a lot of people forget that they matter throughout the course of the day, because everyone you'll ever meet in your entire life is going through something. So we all struggle at times. We don't show it, but we are. And especially people who are providing you service, retail, dining, anytime you walk into an establishment and you're talking to someone who's providing you service, I think lots of times they're not always treated well. They're just maybe not having a great day. On the card, it's amazing to see the change in their eyes, the look on their face, and they look down at it initially. A lot of them say thank you, and sometimes touch their heart, or just look at me like they're going to cry, or just a reminder that their place on this planet is important, because we all wear an invisible sign around our neck that says, make me feel important. And if you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, it talks about that our deepest principle, our craving in life, is to feel valued and appreciated. And too many times we don't get to feel that from other people, and we got to make ourselves feel it as well. But it's a reminder that everyone does matter. There are no mistakes. Everyone's here for a reason. And everyone is a miracle, a masterpiece, and a hero. Like it says on the back of the card. And I can tell you, when I hand the cards out, everybody flips the card over. So that's the reason I have that on there. And it says you are a miracle, a masterpiece, and a hero. And it has a link for my QR code. Now we got a website we're building, and they can take a picture if they like and send it to my youmattermb@gmail.com. and we'll get them up on Instagram and the website that we're building too, to just make this a global movement. So we, like I said, get 1 billion people believing that they matter. We'll touch the whole planet.
Yeah, that is very powerful. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about people wearing this sign around their neck, wanting to feel a sense of belonging. And it's not just that. Everybody want to feel a sense of community also. We want to feel like we're seen. And that demographic you were talking about, in the hospitality industry, I do feel like so many people, I look around when I go to restaurants, because one of the things I'm very keen on doing is asking someone their name if they're not wearing a name tag. Because I feel most of the times like we're on our phones, or we're just so focused on our little group, and that person that's serving us, they barely exist, outside of what we're doing. So I can tell if I was one of those, a server or someone, and you hand me a card like that, it would make me stop and think, oh my gosh. Which I have that question there, what do you think people feel when they see that? Like, you matter. What do you think are the initial reaction?
It touches their heart. I don't know how it can't, because like you said, we all are longing for that. And so just those 2 words, just for a moment, if all it does in the moment is make them feel better about themselves, that's the whole goal. But hopefully it will carry forward through the rest of their day. Maybe they'll make changes in their life. I mean, I'm writing a book, the You Matter book, and I have a story in there about someone I gave a card to that was really having a bad day. And I checked, she sent me an email that day and told me how it just, she cried in her car and made her feel like it was enough to keep going. And then I checked in with her about 6 months later, and her whole life had turned around. And it was kind of, the initiative was those 2 words. So that's how powerful it can be, to touch someone's life, to change them, to hopefully put them in a better place than I found them. And it comes from the heart. I just, there's times I have to remind myself that I matter. And that's sometimes it's your own struggle too, because you're doing it for so many people, and you forget to take care of yourself, self-care.
Yeah.
And not get lost in your own mind.
Yeah. So Mark, sometimes I feel when we start movements and initiatives, like I volunteer, at homes where there abuse women and sex traffic women, and that's close to my heart. Sometimes I feel when we start, though, there's this innate drive, because it's something we've been through and something we've experienced. Does that have anything to do with, I know you heard it from Darren Hardy, but does it have anything to do with that?
Great question. I was asked that question last summer by one of my mastermind cohorts. I'm in a group with 2 other people, Rob Commodore and Mark Palick. And Rob asked me the question, is this all driven by the fact that maybe I don't believe I matter? And I told him, no, I believe I do. But then when I gave it more thought, and as I'm writing the book, I'm going back to experiences in my own life, including childhood when I was younger, being bullied in a new neighborhood that I moved into. I had a speech impediment that I can remember from the time I was about 10 years old, that I first noticed come to light in 4th grade in Miss Cherry's class. I can remember the moment that it happened, that I realized I was going to stutter on the word declaration. And from that point on, for about a decade, I let that affect every decision that I made in life, really, almost. And then I had some, unfortunately, my marriage got reorganized. I don't like the word divorce. So it's a reorganization of the family.
Yeah.
But that happened too. So there's challenges that you have, that there are times you don't feel you matter. And I do believe it comes from a history of who you are. Like, you can't stay in that place, but it is part of your makeup. You talked about that when we did the podcast on my show, and you don't push it aside. You don't forget about it. You can release it, as we learned with Stephen Shea and the Mind Power breakthrough, that you can release these called running parachutes.
Yeah.
And then use them as fuel to help other people. So whatever you've been through in your life, I keep a sign on my desk that says your struggle will be your gift that the world will fall in love with. And that's what you want to share with people. So if you got through the struggle, we all learn from or other people learn from our scars, not our wounds. The wounds need empathy and sympathy maybe in the moment, but you can't complain too much, because most people don't care. But once you've been through it and come out the other side, that's what people want to pay attention to, because that's your story. And stories are the way we define our lives. We're all tied together by this thread and this tapestry of stories. And so that's what makes a difference. And your story will touch someone else, no doubt. Your story's already touched a lot of people. I mean, you have an incredible story, Sally.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So, question, is that what led you to become a reporter then? The stuttering and struggling with it for so long. You're like, okay, I'll show them. Now I'm going to go on national TV. And what drove you to be a reporter?
Well, actually, I backdoored into that because I didn't go in to be a reporter. I went in as a producer because I thought I could not be a reporter because of my speech impediment. So, like I said, it affected many decisions in my life, from girls I talked to production plays I wanted to be in, to as simple as a vocabulary test in a 12th grade English class. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to give the definition of the word, to TV. And I wanted to be on television, but I thought that I couldn't because of the speech impediment that I had, but I think your mind can make it worse than it is. And so I started off as a producer, but then I earned my way to being on air. I was a reporter. I had a helicopter segment every Friday bringing on this morning show how I produced. So I did all the fun stuff. I was afraid to go on as a news reporter when I first got to the TV station. I got lucky. I got an internship, so I got the job that way. But I was afraid I'd be standing in front of a live shot at some crime scene or fire or something, and I'd have to say someone's name that I wouldn't be able to say. And although my mind is a thesaurus and I can come up with words that mean the same as the one that I can't say, you can't do that when you got to read someone's name out, or different words you have to say. And I was fearful that that wouldn't work. And I had to overcome it really with just perseverance and discipline and desire. You can want something so badly, you're going to find a way to bust through it. And I still have a speech impediment. I still have a stutter, and you might hear it in small groups, but when I get up in front of the camera or microphone, or you don't hear it at all. I can speak and say whatever it is that I want. And I've learned certain practices to maybe pause before a word that I thought would be difficult, but it was a big impact on my life that I've overcome.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've learned in our course that we took together was what we tell ourselves is what we will manifest. And for 10 years, that held you back. And that gets to my next question. Was that your biggest challenge in life?
Yeah, one of them definitely. The reorganization of my family is definitely a big challenge, I guess, for anyone that it happens to. And I have two beautiful daughters, and my first wife is great. And so, but the pain of that is a defining moment in your life, because I was married for 18 years. So
yeah,
that ending was definitely painful. But I was at the point, actually, during that time, I can tell you, to kind of get through that, I was with Darren Hardy doing a course called Living Your Best Year Ever with my mastermind group, who I'd been with for about 5 years before that happened. And I used the discipline of my daily activities and tracking those things to keep my mind focused on other things besides the pain of the family kind of, being split apart in the moment. Now we're all great, actually. I mean, I'm going to be with them in Italy. We're going there to see my youngest daughter, who's studying abroad in Florence. It'll be myself, both my girls, and my first wife all together for 5 days. And it's a beautiful thing because as I told my boys when it happened, I was going to have the best divorce. They're going to hate that word ever, but there's no defense to love.
yeah.
And one of the greatest things you can do, especially if you have children, is to love the mother of your children.
Yes, I think a lot of people can take a lesson from that, because there are so many broken marriages and it's so toxic. And the children are used, in between the marriages as leverage, and that is not okay. It's not okay.
No.
So good on you, Mark.
Those are the two biggies. Most recently actually was moving from TV into insurance, because that's a big different role. And when I decided to make the change, my first daughter was young, and my main focus was I didn't want to miss her growing up. Mm-hmm. So I knew if I stayed where I was in television and worked for someone else, that they were in control, and I wanted to take control. I wanted to control my own destiny. So I went out. I'm an independent contractor doing this, self-employed, and really never looked back. But that was a big change. People at the TV station thought I was crazy. But once I got into this, and this is sales, working, for yourself, but not by yourself. But the things I learned was that it's communication and trust. If you can provide those two things and value and appreciation, really three things, people will buy from you, no matter what it is that you're selling. People will pay a lot of money in this world for value.
Value, communication, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I realize I just repeated that question.
That's okay.
I'm like, I don't normally do questions, and when I do questions, Dominic, you can cut this out, right? When I do questions, it doesn't work for me. So we shall move on. We shall move on. I'm gonna put this aside because it doesn't work for me, Mark. I don't do questions.
You know what? But I gave you a different answer, so maybe that's
when you give the answer, I'm like, oh, he's covering for me. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. So tell me about your book. Tell me about your book. I know you're writing the You Matter book. I know the premise is about You Matter, but what is the rest of the book going to look like? What value will it add to someone?
So telling other people's stories, I want to really dive into the human race and what our story means, and then my story, so I can share the things that I've been through, and then really getting to the point of why people believe they don't matter. You kind of got to get at the root of the problem before you can design a solution. And my You Matter movement's not necessarily the total solution, but it's certainly a starting point to get people to dive a little bit deeper into themselves. In all darkness, there is light. And so people are afraid to go inside the darkness to find the light. Yeah. And it's important. And so the book's going to talk about why we believe we don't matter and things that are holding us back from believing they matter, including social media. And when it's not used in the right place, so many, especially younger people, are just defining their lives by this and not being able to relate to other people because they just are used to looking at a screen. And so when you get out in the real world, you actually have to have a one-on-one relationship and things don't go well. You don't know what to do with yourself because all you're doing is looking at fake book, right? Yeah. It's not fake, it's fake book because everyone is showing a truly kind of a facade of what their life is really like. I read about this in the book, no one pulls back the curtain. You can't go behind stage of most people's lives and really see what is going on. Yeah. And everyone you will ever meet in your entire life is going through something. And that you should actually take that as a benefit, because when you feel that your life is not going well at all and things are swirling around you, I got news for you. You're not alone. Yeah. People just talk about it, they hide it, but it's happening. And so realize that you're in a social tribe and other people are struggling too. They're also succeeding. And that's what you should focus on. Let's look at the ways to success instead of just focusing on the failure. But to get to success, you're going to have to fail and you're going to have to get some bruises and skinned knees and bruised hearts to get to where it is you want to go.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned over the past couple of weeks is that you have to get to the root of the problem. I think a lot of my clients come to me and they have an issue and they want to put a Band-Aid on it. Well, tell me how to build self-confidence. Here are some steps to build self-confidence. And I look at it and I'm like, I can't. That's just putting a Band-Aid. Like you have a cut and I'm putting a Band-Aid. How about we figure out how you got that cut and how you got to where you are? And it takes work. And a lot of people don't want to put in the work, right? They rather put a Band-Aid on it. And I'm like, it takes work. If you will just give me a couple of sessions, I will help you figure out where it came from so we can disconnect that running parachute and so we can fly, right, and run like a gazelle. So I totally see where you're coming from. But that being said, would you have some strategies like that in your book to help people disconnect that deep hurt or past or something that caused them to be the way they are and think that they don't matter?
That's the goal. Like I said, you got to go inside and face the demons. I've heard the line recently from the program we did that you can't run from your demons. You have to turn around and hug them. And so you do that and you face the things that were holding you back and things that brought you down. You face them head on first, and then you take action. You start doing things that will make you better in small increments. It's called the compound effect.
Yes.
Focusing on little things you do every single day to make a big difference in your life, having something else to focus on than just the things that are bugging you, looking toward the future as bright, because it is. Everyone's future is bright if you really focus on that, right? You make that a thought process. You change the way you think. And when you change the way you think, the things you think about change.
Yes.
It's focusing on things like reading and gratitude and tracking certain activities and your relationships, making sure that you're not hanging with losers because by osmosis, you're a loser, or hanging around people that complain all the time. You've got to change your close environment around
Yes.
you, as well as, gosh, meditation, visualization. And I have a meetup called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And we go over 12 basic principles of change that I developed over time. And they're just regular things you can do,
Mhm.
but you can't track all of them, but you can definitely focus on many of them, and including things like opinions. That helps people believe they don't matter too, because your opinion doesn't match with someone else's, or someone hates yours, then you think you hate yourself, or you argue
Yeah.
about it, and no one ever wins an argument.
Yes, and that's so true. It's something as simple as that. There's so much division all over because people won't just stop to listen to each other because their opinion matters. Right? They don't
Mhm.
stop to give people a chance. But tell me about your storytelling a little bit. How did you get into storytelling?
So when I started a blog about 13 years ago, it was called It's Just About Life. And I was just doing observations of life, things I would see around me and just observe. And I was doing that a couple of days a week. And then my wife at the time got breast cancer. And so I was keeping a caring bridge journal. And so I was tracking my own thoughts about what was happening, end up turning into a book called It Takes Two, Surviving Breast Cancer, a Spouse's Story. And someone liked the way that I was writing when I was doing the Caring Bridge journals. I would post up each day that I was doing it. And they're like, we have a son who has a terminal illness. And we love the way you write and how your heart just is able to express itself. So would you mind telling the story about our son? I thought to myself, it was actually a Friday morning, and I'll never forget this. Your greatest ideas come in the shower, right? I'm in the shower Friday morning, and I'd had this blog. It's called It's Just About Life. And I'm like, somebody wants me to tell this story. I'm going to interview them and write it. What am I going to call it? And I thought, you know what? I'll call it the Sunday series, and I'll publish it on Sundays, because Sundays is a day people have more time to read.
Mm-hmm.
And the blogs were kind of long. So I did that first interview. I turned it into a story, posted it up, and it got more response than everything I'd ever done. And it wasn't because of that I want to keep doing it. I knew that it was making a bigger impact, not because I'm there for the numbers, but because I'm there for the impact. And so I started doing these every single week, the Sunday series, for about 5 or 6 years. I think I'm 150. And I took a compilation, like the first 35, and turned them into a book called the Sunday series, Stories of Courage, Hope, and Inspiration, Volume 1. And then when I came to the insurance company, at least the newer version of it that I'm with, and had an idea, I said, for recruiting, why don't we tell stories about agents, leaders in the company, and home office people? Because facts tell, stories tell.
Yes, yes.
And if you want to attract, then tell stories. Because as soon as you read someone's story, imagine this, like someone you don't even like,
Yeah.
but you read their story or hear their story, and then your whole perspective on them changes because they have been through things that either maybe you can relate to or never knew they did. And it's so important because stories are the way we all connect. There's a great story, apparently, that started the world called the Bible.
Yes.
So stories definitely matter, right?
Yeah.
We're going back and reading that, and it's very interesting and very dramatic and entertaining, and it makes a difference. So storytelling is a way that we all can connect with each other. And I want to keep doing that as well on a bigger scale. And that You Matter movement could lead to a lot more storytelling as well, because they get to know people who this really touches. I think I can develop another entity with that storytelling business.
Yeah, and I think, I'm glad you brought that up because if in the workplace, like if someone's listening to this from and you work with a big corporation, it humanizes people when you get to know their stories and you get to know who they are, and they're a person outside of work with families and with issues and going through hard things. Sometimes we don't even look at that. It's easy to dehumanize and not know what that person outside of the workplace. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. So you've done a lot, man. Author, podcaster, blogger, storyteller, news reporter. What do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
Certainly being a father to two beautiful daughters, Sophie and Emily, huge accomplishment. They're 23 and 20, and they're fantastic. When you create life, that's got to be your first greatest accomplishment.
Yeah.
Besides that, I really think it is transitioning from one industry to another, completely doing a 180 from TV to insurance, and believing in myself enough and desiring enough to make an impact to then become an author and a blogger, and turning in and doing things that I love, and really finding out a lot about myself and making sure that was back to who it was that I was when I was little. And I keep a picture on my dresser in my bedroom, and it's me in an 8x10 at 5 years old. I got a bowl cut. I had hair then. Had a bowl cut, and I'm looking up into the sky, kind of in the picture. I guess it was a school portrait, but that's the way I want to still see myself every single day, as the wonder of life. That there's still magic out there that I can bring, light that I can give. I mean, a lighthouse is like one of my greatest symbols. I want to have a glass beach house and a lighthouse together, and I want to use that to impact people. So it's really accomplishment, definitely my daughters, but then just really the mission of trying to impact 1 billion people. Where did that come from? And it came from inside my soul. It whispers to you. Your soul usually doesn't shout, it whispers to you, and it tells you what it is that you should be doing. And then because you have the mission, then the things that you need to fulfill that mission start to happen, right? The universe conspires on your behalf, and the You Matter movement kind of came out of nowhere. And I just decided to take action on something that I heard and thought it could make a bigger difference in people's lives, and it has, and it is, and it will continue to do so.
Yeah. So aside from You Matter, and you're continuing to work as at the insurance agency, what else are you doing? What's in the future for Mark?
King of the world. No, kidding. I have three people that I've looked up to in my life. One's Michael Jackson, because he was such a huge impact when I was growing up, from the 80s to the 90s, because I was about age 15 to 25. And what he was able to do with his music and touch in every corner of the globe, I thought was amazing. And then you got Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs has put a dent in the universe, making this incredible contraptions, technology, iPhone, iPad, and just really making it a difference in all of our lives. And then someone like Mother Teresa, or even Wayne Dyer, just spiritual and looking to help people. So I want to combine all those things into one. I want to, because I'm fascinated by how people become the most famous people in the world. And you can argue that Michael Jackson, Steve Jobs, Mother Teresa are the most famous people in the world, and combine them all into one thing. And what that thing is going to be is I'm developing. So it could be writing a lot more books. It could be taking this You Matter movement and seeing where it's going to take me in terms of global impact. I want to write, speak, and inspire. Those are my three goals. I do it even in the insurance company because I'm a division leader, so I recruit, train, and motivate. But the inspiration that I can bring and the energy that I bring that really never ends is really important to me. And that energy is going to fuel other projects that I want to work on and am working on. So my vision is to use this You Matter movement to fulfill the mission, and it's developing over time. And I'd like to, design a coaching business. I want to be able to change people's minds and hearts at the same time, and get them to a place where they believe that their place on this planet is very impactful, because it is. You're a miracle, a masterpiece, and a hero.
Those are some big, audacious goals. But if anybody can pull it off, you can. So are you telling me your personal branding is a combination of Michael Jackson, Steve Jobs, and Mother Teresa?
That's what I'm trying to bring all into one rolled up ball. So
I'm excited to see how that comes together. That's going to be really, really powerful. Oh man, it was so great having you on the podcast, Mark. Is there anything else regarding You Matter, or anything else you want our audience to know before we wrap up?
Believe in yourself. Believe that, like I've talked about, you're here for a reason. I think it's so important. And that reason could be as simple as just being a great mother or father, or as big as trying to be Steve Jobs and Denver, for Michael Jackson, who just music to and touched every corner of the globe. And you basically, if you can go inside and figure out what it is that is your why, and develop that and bring that to a place where it lights up everyone that you touch, what an incredible experience this world would be. And everyone can make that happen, but you got to do the work. We can't just sit in a corner watching. TV is not going to get you there. You got to read. You've got to take action. Action creates momentum. Every small step you do is going to make a difference, even though you think in the moment that it's not. So act on what it is that you want. Go after it. like your life depends on it, because in some cases it does. And also remember that the clock is ticking, that we're all going to die at some point. We don't know when. So life is not finite. I mean, life is finite, it's not infinite. And so whatever you can do while you're here, let's see if we can all do everything we can with all we have been given.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you sharing on the podcast and for being so open and vulnerable. You are an inspiration. And my takeaway is regardless of where you are, if you're watching this, just know that you matter. You matter. And that's going global.
You do, Sally Allen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. And thank you to Sticky Paw Studio and Dominique behind the decks.